Okay, so let's get going. Welcome everybody. Our first EOcafe of 2021. Our last one was held just before Christmas. It was our virtual Christmas party where everyone joined us for a virtual glass of prosecco. We called it Prosecchio, and I had the great honor to interview Santa about his use of satellite data to do his job. He told us all about how he uses Galileo and Copernicus to help him in his rounds. So that was nice. We've had a lot of interest for this EOcafe, so that's really great. For those who are new, and reminder for those who are not, EOcafe, we introduce it, is just meant to be a relaxing place where everybody can come and enjoy a virtual coffee and exchange and talk. And I talk with some guests in a very informal way. You can listen into our conversation, and then later on you can join in and ask questions. So we started it just after the lockdown, and we have an EOcafe every 2 weeks. So this is now the 15th EOcafe. We plan for around 45 minutes for the cafe, for the first part of the conversation, including questions from you. We can go up to an hour very easily. And after we finish the informal but formal part of the meeting, then anyone can hang around and join in the chat and just exchange when they can. General rules of the game: microphones off unless you're invited to speak. Cameras on if you wish. It's nice to have the cameras and see everybody and be able to sort of see who's with us. If you want to ask a question, please write it in the chat. I will call on you to ask your question, and at that point you can unmute your microphone. But please write it in the chat first so that we know what you're asking and what's coming. So that's the starting. I'm very pleased to have 3 guests with me today. From what was the GNSS Agency and is now the European Space Programs Agency, or EUSPA. I guess we'll sort out a pronunciation for that in time. So firstly, we have Fiammetta Diani, who's Head of Market Development at the agency, and she's joined by 2 colleagues, Justina I knew I'd struggle. Radelkovic, Head of Sector for Location-Based Services, Market and Technology, and Eduard Escalona Zorita, who's the Marketing Innovation Officer. And I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a moment, but just to sort of set the scene, the Space Programs Agency came into existence with the adoption of the European Space Program, which brings additional responsibilities to what was the GSA in terms of fostering the commercial use of Copernicus, federating user requirements for GovSatcom, and maximizing synergies in the field of space innovation. And I think there's a real responsible for coordination of security activities across the program as well. According to the new director, Rodrigo da Costa, it's about creating synergies and combining the assets of European space, which will translate into smarter, greener, and more sustainable solutions. And I mean, we can at EARTH very much buy into that statement. Our goal is to help promote the sector, so the Earth observation services sector, the companies that are operating in that sector and its capabilities. We have 120 members, many small companies and startups, so it's good. Our goal is really to help companies grow and grow their business. So again, that statement resonates well. So rather than carrying on, let me start just by asking each of our guests if they would give a short, brief introduction of what their role in the agency entails. And Fiammetta, maybe you could also include a perspective of what the GNSS agency overall role was as well, before we get on to talking about the future. Fiammetta?
Okay, Jeff, thank you very much for giving me the word. So first of all, I'm Fiammetta Diani. I'm head of market development department at the European GNSS Agency. We are still the GSA in this moment, soon to become the EU Space Program Agency. And maybe a few words about my background. So I'm aerospace engineer by studies at Politecnico di Milano. And I have also a postgraduate master in economics to complete my profile. And before joining the GSA in 2009, I was working 11 years in the private sector in big industry, but also in SME and startups. So I know what is the beauty, but also what is the challenge to create new products, launch on the market, find the customers, find the money from the banks or from the other financing sources. And the fil rouge of all my experience has been to use the space technologies for our daily life and products. So I'm trying to bring this experience also in my work today at the GSA, that is on the other side, to foster the development of the market and to increase the users of our European GNSS system, Galileo and EGNOS. So the agency today is in charge of delivering the services of Galileo and EGNOS. So we have also 24/7 center that do this job. We foster the market, the user, and we take care of research and innovation. So we manage the course of EGNSS application. And I will explain maybe a bit better later what we do. And so we are really keen to become very soon the EU agency for the space program, and it will be my honor to explain you later. Thanks.
That's great. We look forward to that. Justina?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Prague. So my name is Justina and I'm working in the team of Fiammetta Diani already for 10 years. We work together on Galileo. And now I'm really excited to start working within EUSPA also on other EU space program components. So today in the team, I'm responsible for what we call Pillar 1, so market and user knowledge. So all the area of market monitoring, technology monitoring. And in terms of applications, I work on smartphones and automotive segments.
Great, thanks. Edward?
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Jess, for inviting us. It's my second EOcafe. I have been in one as a only in the audience, so it was very nice. So I'm very happy to now be a little bit more on the spot. So I'm a market development innovation officer at the GSA at the agency. I joined in February 2019. So next month will be 2 years. My background is more on research and innovation, and I'm telecommunications engineer and have a PhD in telecommunications. But the last 2 years have been really exciting for me. I have been responsible for the market development of the geomatics market segment for GNSS. And now I'm involved in many activities in the agency, including the preparation of the activities for starting this year for Copernicus, which it's really interesting and really exciting for me. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm very happy to talk to you all.
Great. And obviously attending didn't put you off, or was good enough that you wanted to be on this side of the table as well. Great.
Unfortunately, I couldn't participate in the Christmas party. I would have liked to, but I had another meetings. But hopefully this year we'll be able.
You missed a great party. We set ourselves a challenge to follow it for next year, for this year, that's for sure. We've seen significant change, or we're seeing a significant change in the institutional landscape with the creation of the space agency. So I mean, it's reflected in the interest here to try and understand a bit more what this will mean. And from an industry point of view, I think they've expressed a lot of expectation, but also concerns how EUSPA will fit in. You've just got a new director and a new mandate, or you're about to get a new mandate. Can you give us some more information about the role of the agency and the vision of the agency? Fiammetta, perhaps I could ask you to address that.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. So indeed, the co-legislators, so the European Commission, the European Parliament and the Council has finished their work to set the new space program regulation. That is now, the text is agreed among the co-legislator. There is still some, let's say, bureaucratic work to do, let me put like this, to complete the legislation, like the translation and so on. So this is why we are not officially yet the EU agency for the space program. But what was the intention of this co-legislator? In creating a single EU space program, they wanted also to have an agency that is no more dedicated only to the European GNSS, to EGNOS and Galileo, but is transversal to the what we call the space program components. The space program components are indeed the European GNSS, Copernicus, but also GovSatcom, that is the new secure telecommunication initiative that we are also starting exactly in these days, as well as the situational awareness. So in this transversal role, the intention of the co-legislator is also to help to create synergies among these program components. But let me go to our role in particular. So one of the new role of the EU Agency for the Space Program, among others, is to promote, do the market development and the user uptake also of Copernicus. Till now we did for EGNSS. This was one of our core tasks. And also we will coordinate the user of GovSatcom, and we will, as you were explaining, do the part of research and development of the downstream of the application part for all the program components, including, for example, Horizon Europe, that is going to happen soon, and I will maybe give some insights later on. Also, we will support the Commission in the new entrepreneurship initiative that is targeting the startups, that is called Cassini. If you heard our commissioner was explaining it very recently, I will also give some insights later on about it. So the role of EUSPA will be transversal, if you want, and to aim at creating synergies among these components. And what is our vision? The vision, also according to our new director that you mentioned, Mr. Da Costa, so we are starting a new agency, we have a new director, so it's really a new phase, is to have a user-oriented operational agency that serve the full EU space program with the interest of the EU in mind. So for what concerns Copernicus in particular, our vision is that there is a lot of work to do. We don't want to overlap with what is already happening. So the role of the Commission is very clear, the role of the interested entities is very clear, the role of EUSPA will be to complement it. So as we see it, is to enlarge the pie, so to add, to succeed, to exploit the potential of Copernicus data, to add new users, new businesses, and to finally increase the competitiveness of our company. So in this, we are really happy to start the partnership with your association and with all the members that will be present today. And we will focus, as you were explaining, more on what we call the other users. So not on the core user of Copernicus that are well served by the core services and well under the control of the current players, but more to the commercial users, to the private users, as well as research and the non-governmental, but focusing especially on the part of commercial users. We think there is a potential to grow this part, and I will explain maybe later, if you give me the opportunity, how we think this could be done, exploiting also the experience we had with Galileo and EGNOS till now.
I'll certainly try and give you the opportunity to explain. Everyone's looking to hear. In terms of, I mean, and the obviously the question of new boundaries comes in, and everyone's sort of concerned about where the boundaries are going to lie and how that's going to impact them. And I think that's a lot of what people are looking to understand. I mean, GSA has been in existence for some years now. I can even remember going back to the GJU, and then that was new and set up in just behind where my office was at the time. So you have a great deal of experience in dealing with applications relating to positioning, location-based services, serving. I was thinking earlier, what exactly is the Galileo community? But maybe that's for another time as well. So how do you see yourself building on this if you're now looking to also help the Earth observation services community? There's a lot of learning to do, a lot of differences and similarities. So how do you see that feeding across into what you can do in the for the Copernicus, the Earth observation services community?
Yes, so indeed, so you give me the opportunity to better explain this point, because we are aware of the differences. So we are well aware, and we studied in depth that the value chain of Copernicus and the structure of Earth observation downstream is different from the one of navigation and of Galileo. But we see also some potential of not similarities, but really synergies. So to create these synergies, let me explain a bit more. So at the GSA in these years, since when we were in Rue de la Loi, so not far probably from you, till now we are in Prague since 2012. So this concept of developing the market and the user has been based on three main pillars. The first pillar is we believe that we need a good market knowledge and user knowledge and user technology knowledge to be able to do a strategy, to be able to really help the compartment to grow. And for this reason, we have this publication that you may have heard about, that are the GNSS market report, the GNSS technology report, where we really study in depth the different market segments, and we provide also forecasting of the economy behind. And especially the market report has become a bit the instrument for investors and for companies who want to build the business plan in the field of navigation. And maybe then I will give the word to my colleague who will explain you a bit better also what we do with the user consultation platform. So build a good knowledge of the user and of the market. We work on the demand support. So when we started with Galileo, it may be easy now because we have 2 billion users, but when we started, it was absolutely not easy. It was a system that was coming after others in a sector that was already pretty developed. And so it was not easy to communicate the differences, what are the advantages. And so we started to work with the user communities. Who are these user community, just to make an example? So are for example, the train operators or the pilot of the aircrafts, or in the agriculture, even the farmers are our kind of user community directly. To make them understand and grow a demand of the system. So from time to time, we have to build a standard or to do a testing campaign or to do a cost-benefit analysis. So a series of tools customized for this user community. And finally, once we know the market and we have a demand, we want an offer. So we create an offer of products and services that we want made in EU. So this is the tool we use to foster the competitiveness of our companies. And there the Commission gave us some tools. One is Horizon 2020 today. We have around 80 projects under Horizon 2020, developing specific products or doing patents and innovating in the sector. The fundamental element, that is a program that we built from scratch at the GSA under delegation of the Commission, that is to develop all these technologies that are needed in the middle. And this is similar also to Copernicus. And finally, we support the adoption. For example, in our case, we had to train the pilot to be able to use this new system, EGNOS, to land the aircraft. Otherwise, we will never get there, or we have to help the airports to get equipped, and so on. So based on these three pillars, we succeeded to have today 2 billion users of Galileo. So we brought Galileo on cars, on trucks, on tractors, and EGNOS on the plane and in the airport. And this generated also growth in the downstream market share. So we went from 24 to 27% of market share of our EGNSS downstream industry. And we would like now to grow it to 30%. So how do we think that this methodology can serve also the Copernicus community? So as I said, we are organized by market segments. So in my team, you will not have a rocket scientist of GNSS and tomorrow not of Copernicus. So we have some expertise, but our main expertise is really in the market side, in the user side. So I have expert of rail, how it works, how the train control works exactly, of aviation, of agriculture, and so on. And if we look at the market segment, I can see three categories. The first category is that market segment in which Galileo is very strong, like transport. There we have a very good knowledge, in-depth knowledge of all the actors, and we can bring, so our challenge there will be to help the companies, to help the community to get to this transport market where Copernicus is present, but not enough. Then there are market segments where Copernicus is prevalent and is very strong, like all the environmental management or the climate change. There, GNSS is used, but only marginally, permit me to say. And so there we would like to exploit the synergy of Copernicus to increase the use of Galileo and products. And finally, we have the majority of segments where the synergies are more natural, like agriculture, that we will see maybe later on some insights, agriculture and forestry, maritime and marine application. But also there, often, if I'm a farmer, I still have to go to look for different technology, different solutions. So we would like to help the companies, the compartment, to have solutions that can bring together the two systems and the two technologies. And in this way, we hope to democratize more the technology and to bring more users around the table, and so more business for the companies. But I was thinking that maybe Justina can give you also some more insights about our pillar one and what we started already for Copernicus in this part.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Fiammetta. I will be very happy to contribute. So I will give you a bit more insights on the so-called pillar one that Fiammetta introduced, which is the market and technology monitoring and the user coordination. So in particular, in market monitoring, when we started 10 years ago, it was very important for the agency to understand the market, how it will be forecasted in terms of revenues and also the users, to build the Galileo entry strategy. This was the main objective. But with time, we understood that this market and user knowledge is not only important for us, but can also benefit a lot the companies to help them, their revenues projections, their business strategies, and also for the R&D community. When they are developing a new product, it was very important for them to see how this application will develop in the future. Is this the one that is most growing, or is maybe the one that will be declining? So we started publishing this information, and until now we published already 6 market reports that are freely accessible on our website. I really encourage you to take a look at them. And as part of the preparatory work for EUSPA, we started already to work on consolidation of this market monitoring work for both GNSS and Copernicus. Of course, we are not starting from scratch. There are already Copernicus market report published, and we don't want to redo the work that was already done. However, we see it important also for the companies like the ERSC members to have one market projection, because in the end, if we look at agriculture or if we look at synergetic applications, the market is one, and if you have to develop your corporate strategy, you need to have data that is consistent in terms of time frame in which the projection is made, calculated according to similar methodology, and it will really ease your life when you have to bid for investment, for example, or if you have to plan your own strategies. So we started with the segmentation first, because there are different segmentations for Copernicus and GNSS today. As Fiammetta said, we started to work on this prevalent GNSS, prevalent Copernicus, and synergetic segmentation. We also took into account, for example, the ERSC taxonomy. So thank you for that. It was an interesting input also for our work. And we are pleased to say that we are planning to publish still this year, in the fourth quarter, the first market report that will be combined for GNSS and Earth observation. And it's very important for us to get also your feedback if you find it useful. So if some of the companies would like to be somehow engaged in the process, also reach out to us. We will be happy to get some expert opinions, because it's the first one. So we want to create it in the best way. And the second area that Fiammetta was mentioning was the user coordination. So also there, a few years ago, we set up a process that was, again, initiated by our internal need to understand the user requirements, because every time we were involved in the designing of new service of Galileo, or even planning of the second constellation, we had the need to have a formal user requirements submitted, let's say, as input to this user-oriented program. And since a few years, we are running the so-called user consultation platform. That is our important event organized biannually, where we consult the users on these user requirements and formalize the process. Of course, we don't speak with the users only once per year or once in 2 years, but this is an important, again, formal process to develop new services and new differentiators of Galileo. And also there, it was a very important milestone for us in December 2020, because for the first time, the other Copernicus users were invited to join our user consultation platform, and were invited to contribute. We had in every market segment session a specific part dedicated to Synergies. And I think it was a really very interesting experience. And in the future, we are hoping to integrate also these processes a little bit more to provide an integrated view. Thank you.
So, I'm pleased to hear that our our taxonomy was useful. It's something we've been producing now for a few years, and obviously we very much look forward to working more closely with you, develop the taxonomy, develop the market report as well, where we can contribute. In that respect, I'll mention it later, but we're just about to do our latest industry survey, which would certainly help in that respect. Oh, and it was Luxembourg. It was even before Rue de la Loi. It was Luxembourg. So Edouard, we're just talking about the tools. Where do you see the synergies between Galileo and Copernicus?
This is a good question, and the question that we are lately being asked a lot, because we talk about the synergies. Fiammetta was mentioning that we have to foster the synergies between the different EU components, and here it's true that if you look at them kind of separately, they both, GNSS and Copernicus, provide actually quite different services. On one side you have GNSS providing real-time positioning or timing navigation, and on the other hand you have Copernicus that it's giving information of a particular area, environmental information with some data, and maybe allows you to construct maps through images. So if you look at it, they seem quite separate, but we see a lot of synergies that synergies or complementarities that can be used in similar industry value chains. Even if you have, if you look at the value chain for a particular market segment in GNSS, or you look at it for Copernicus, at the end there are several similarities on similar users that are using both services, but they are using them kind of separately many times. But we believe that strengthening that collaboration, that usage of both systems, and fostering that and teaching the users that you have these two, how can you complement each other, in which phases of your application can you use them, that is something that we have to foster. Because even if for Copernicus, for example, the market developed so far for institutional users it's already successful, as Fiammetta mentioned, our focus now should be on complementing this towards non-core users, non-institutional users, meaning some commercial users that are aware of Copernicus, but those that even are not aware of Copernicus and that the possibilities that they can offer. And we find many cases, for example, in GNSS, in some markets, they are already using both. For example, you can think for sure in agriculture, in which there are many applications and farmers that they are very advanced technologically, and they are using already GNSS for many applications for precision farming. But they are using also Copernicus to get very critical information like NDVI or crop information about monitoring moisture of the soil. And using both together, sometimes it's not so obvious for many people. So we have to try to use that and use the example, for example, of agriculture, but in other segments. In smart cities, in consumer solutions, in transport, for example, we see that there are many opportunities that are not really exploited. So these kind of synergies is what we talk. These synergies in the downstream value chain, in the creation and innovation, and how to create new opportunities, new applications, new solutions, that we believe that it's not so well exploited because, as I said, individually GNSS and Copernicus are quite well used, but maybe we see that for some specialized users. And what we want to do is a little bit make it easier, democratize it, and teach people how using both together. Things can get easier, and you can get much more information, much more, many more possibilities.
Okay, I mean certainly for agriculture, it's very clear. I saw a comment. I'm not quite sure where it came from. Was it in the concept note maybe about how GNSS was optimizing fertilizer use? I think we might say that Earth observation is optimizing fertilizer use. So there is probably some synergy. Other sectors, I'm a little less convinced. I think there's a lot in terms of the market that can be done. A lot in terms of addressing the market, but at the technology level, I'm not so sure. So it'll be interesting to see how we can develop that, and to really see what advantages there could be. This meeting was set up for the EO services community primarily so that we could, as I explained at the beginning, people could keep in contact during this time of isolation and everyone resting at home and working remotely. We discussed that we wanted to address the role and the activities of the agency, and we felt that maybe it was good to focus on two specific segments. We identified agriculture, and we identified smart cities as being two possibly lighthouse areas where there are opportunities for synergy, opportunities for bringing both technologies to apply, maybe in a complementary way. In terms of the support measures that you've used in those segments, do you have maybe some good success stories that you can bring and sort of help convince people of how this will and can work?
Maybe I can say something here.
Yeah, sure.
As you know, we support and through delegation we promote the R&D through R&D programs like H2020 that Fiammetta mentioned, and now Horizon Europe and fundamental elements for devices. But through H2020, our calls were usually quite generic, even if we have some specific calls looking for professional applications or for more consumer solutions. And but we have received many applications, of course, in all these years since FP7 till now for agriculture and for smart cities. For agriculture, we have several examples, but not only. Also in we of course, our calls were mainly dedicated to GNSS, but we were always, if you have seen our calls, we're always saying it's encouraged the use of Copernicus and how it can complement GNSS. So we have always looked into that, and we have some examples on that. We have an example of a project that finished, I think, a year and a half ago, that it was monitoring landslides in order to predict and provide early warning. And that project, for example, was using GNSS in order to provide real-time movements, but also Copernicus in order to, is a different scale, let's say. It's the periodicity is not so often, but you can still predict some movements, and even very precisely, even if the resolution of Sentinels are not so good, but you can, with these movements, you can really predict very fine-grained movements and advance in this kind of cases. We have other cases of examples in search and rescue, in which a project is using images from Copernicus from one part of the process. I think this project was for managing migration in I think this one is particular in the Mediterranean area. And then using GNSS for the actual operation. So in different phases, you can use this. For agriculture, we have some examples, but apart from H2020, we are also trying to promote this. We have the EGNSS for CAP, project that we have been working for a while, in which basically it supports authorities and farmers to provide subsidies and to make sure that the crops is what they are promising that it's there, and to provide the monitoring information and provide information, so it can facilitate and avoid that the inspectors have to go to the field and so on. And this application is using Copernicus on one side images to demonstrate the crops are there, but also GNSS to locate and to show that the proportions and the crops are actually there. And we also have, I think we can. There is has been discussed about the measures we have for promotion for supporting and entrepreneurship, and we have competitions, for example, and one competition is a farm by satellite, in which we are encouraging the use of GNSS, but also combined with Copernicus. And I think last year we received one of the second winner. It was one solution that it was using actually both technologies to provide solutions to farmers to kind of manage their crops and then provide a whole system of monitoring of the crops and their the health using Copernicus, and also then to guide machinery through GNSS. So there are many uses and examples, use cases, but I'm sure we can find more. And I think actually, let me say, because I think I was monitoring the participant list and I saw one of my colleagues, Joaquin Reyes, but also one of the people that are supporting us in the farming by satellite, that it's a person working in class, which is Klaus Herbert Rolf, that I think he was connected. I don't know if he can even mention something and of how these things that we have done, especially for farming by satellite, are how are we collaborating? And
I was also wondering if you have examples of companies where you've been able to particularly help them, and they've really, they transformed their business as a result of that. Justina, is that something you can comment on?
Yes, we have several examples like that. Of course, we've been supporting companies with R&D programs a lot in the last years. I don't know if we have somebody connected here from our projects that can give the testimony, but indeed, the synergies are created not only on the level of the users, but also on the work that we do as market development team together with the companies to help them somehow scale up their business. So we are helping them, for example, to get the right contact, to support technically with testing. Like in GNSS, we have the testing of receivers. That is a very important part where we support directly with our lab. We are supporting, as Fiammetta was saying, with removing some barriers, like in case of certifications or standards that are needed, or even in the case of EGNOS, for example, when we were implementing the landing procedures with EGNOS, we directly worked with the airports, with the pilots, and so on. And all this network is now at the disposal of the Earth observation companies, because, as Fiammetta was saying, in transport, GNSS is let's say the technology, one of the two that is maybe used more. And so now the companies from Earth observation can approach us, and together we can try to see how to leverage the network that we already created, the network that we have with ports, with airports, with even cities sometimes, that we can really leverage for the Earth observation community as well. And let me give you just one example that we are doing recently. My colleagues maybe can contribute that are connected here, is the so-called Green City Initiative. So we've been thinking, like now with COVID, our lives completely changed. The way that we move, the smart mobility environment has changed a lot, has been impacted by this pandemic situation. And I know that many cities, they are using this opportunity to also modernize their infrastructure. And not only the public, let's say, governments or the city municipalities, but also on the private side, the transport providers, the road user charging providers, and so on, they see how we can use this time of a bit of idle time to modernize, to implement new technologies to become more sustainable in the future. And in this, we have made a survey with the support of one of the projects that we are co-funding that is called Ariadna. We surveyed around 70 cities in Europe and in the world, and understood how space technologies could help them to implement these new sustainability objectives. And in fact, we understood that both Earth observation and GNSS can contribute a lot to this. With Earth observation, there could be a much better planning on how to design the infrastructure, how to design the water management facilities, the public transport infrastructure, how to better respond to crisis, even how to support the current COVID situation with assessment of the movements of people and increase the efficiency. And then with GNSS to implement these new technologies, for example, for fleet management, to better manage the infrastructure that the cities have. So we also encourage here to the Earth observation companies to get in touch with us, because the project Ariadna is still working. We will be helping GNSS companies to approach cities together as a community to offer these technologies, and we are also looking forward to get some interest from the Earth observation companies.
Okay, great. Don't forget to put questions into the chat. Edward, Klaus Rolf is in the call. So Klaus, do you want to respond to Edward's earlier comments?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, thank you for the possibility to answer. That what Edward said was really that what I can say. It is for me to see this community from the navigation systems from GSA, older name, and from the Earth observation community in one. That is something Christmas is second time in 40 days. That what we ask every time for. Then all the resource from navigation, we need some Earth observation, and so Earth observation without of navigation is nothing for farmers' view. And I think Fiammetta knows that we discussed this longer time ago and say we must come out of the silos and come together. Up to startups, I think today when we look about crop view, it's one of our products what we bring to farmers for very, very less of invest and fee. It is a starting point to go into precision farming also as farmer without of big investments. And we can say thank you to the GSA as to support from the marketing develop to make the contact to the right guys in Earth observation. That is something what we need. As Eduard mentioned, we started 5 years ago to bring the farming by satellite on the road, and the topic was here from our side, and I think the colleagues in Prague was the same meaning, to bring young professionals and students to the idea to think about farming by satellite and possibilities. Not all of the proposal was but there was a lot of good ideas, and we tried to come together with the startups. The question is not how to come together, sondern that is for our sides, from an industry side, for class, for example, it is most important that we have a problem and find the solution then together, not to have a solution and then look for the problem by the farmer. And I can say to the community every time, please have really focused on the farmer's situation and the farmer's needs. And we work for this solution that the farmer has something about this.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. I think we've seen over the last few years, agriculture has perhaps been the most dynamic area for startups and new companies coming into the system. Starting to see more in other areas now, and certainly one of the trends I've been picking up on is the is companies coming from outside Earth observation, so our domain, but coming into using Earth observation, and that's great, and that's something we certainly want to encourage.
That's really, but the best topic for startups is to have a real professional view of these topics. Yeah, as what we said is domain knowledge and technology knowledge must come together. Yeah. When you have a really nice palette picture and you have no idea what you must do in the agriculture area, then it is also nothing. That's the same when an agriculture farmer said, I have some ideas, but he has no knowledge about Earth observation or navigation. We must bring this knowledge together, and then we can do something more. Therefore, CLASS founded in 2013 their own startup in Berlin to train and to learn. This is 365 FarmNet in Berlin, and it's a good example how we can go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else wanting to intervene, please put the comment in the chat, and I can call on you. There's a comment. Let's open it up now. Alberto Manella is asking about synergies with the drone community as well. So, Alberto.
Yes. I mean, if I may, yes. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself very quickly. My name is Alberto Mennella. I'm a telecommunication engineer, and I have a navigation background. And actually, since 2013, I'm one of the co-founder of TopView, which is a small medium enterprise, a startup by that time, that has been founded to explore this new growing market of drones. And we were one of the companies that had been funded by the GSA with the first project called EasyPV, which at that time exploited especially Galileo for high accuracy services. But we started by that project to build up our company and to hire people. So actually we have reached a very stable organization thanks to the H2020 program, and especially this particular project funded by the GSA. My point was that since we are working in the EUSpace community, so the new services for drones that are expected to fly at the very low level airspaces, so very close to the ground, we believe that there's a gap that shall be filled in terms of, let's say, accuracy of navigation, integrity of navigation, so both services that the EGNSS may provide to this community, as well as information missing from the cartography. So just believe about the volumetric information, 3D models, detailed terrain model, surface model. So this sort of information that shall be updated very quickly, because the EUSpace service providers, so those providers that shall give at the end to drones the information that they need for safe navigation, I believe that these two technical aspects can be both somehow filled by a synergy between Galileo and Copernicus. So this is just, to provide a feedback about what we believe is needed in this community, and what is the added value that these two technologies, these two European technologies can bring at the end.
Anyone would like to comment? Fiammetta? Justina?
Yes, I can comment on this. So thanks, Alberto, for pointing out to the drones market as one of the potential market that will also use the synergies among the two systems. Indeed, this is a growing market. For example, you know that in GNSS, we have so-called professional application. In the past, it was done by surveyors that go and and do operations to measure or to check infrastructure. Now it's done by drones. So this is becoming the most common platform for all professional application. And in addition, there is all the new part of urban mobility via drones that is emerging, like delivering your packages on your terrace and so on, that is still to come, but is a lot of investment up there. So it's certainly an area where we can focus on to grow the synergies between Copernicus and Galileo. But Alberto reminded me also about this project, EasyPV. That was a project about photovoltaic, because together with them, there was another SME. They were coming, as you say, Jeff, from outside, no? So they were people who do the photovoltaic installations. And this project developed a solution to find defective photovoltaic cells and to increase the lifetime of the solar farms, as well as to decrease the cost of maintenance. And so this is an example of where we combined the expertise of one SME that is a GNSS, let's say, more technological, and one that is more instead in the field and coming really from the outside. And now I know they are exporting this solution also outside Europe. I found them in Japan, so I'm very happy that we triggered this innovation. And it reminded me that energy, for example, is another area where we should look carefully, because with the Copernicus, years ago, I was already doing some service, for example, for production forecast in hydropower, but now in other renewables is widely used. And combined with GNSS, we can, for example, find the right place for a wind farm or monitor what is happening when they are installed and so on. So I think this is another area to explore the synergy.
Yeah, and maybe sort of the whole area of raw materials would be another interesting area. Okay. We're not having many questions. I see what's so Cascade funding. Yeah, I mean that's something that we've been fairly heavily involved with Parsec. And in addition, in EShape, we did a form of Cascade funding in bringing new partners into the picture. Emmanuel, you want to talk about that? Come into the discussion.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hi. I'm a big fan of market pool, and in the last 2 years, there were and there are ongoing projects which are supporting market pool, such as Network of Resources from ESA and EOcafe from DG Connect. EOcafe is dedicated to scientists and researchers across Europe, while Network of Resources is
using Earth observation.
Yeah. That's market pool of Earth observation services. So basically, a real user is getting a voucher from either ESA or DG Connect in order to access to an operational service provided by an operational service provider leveraging Earth observation resources. So those initiatives are interesting, and as Jeff was mentioning, Cascade funding is another type of market pool, at least from my understanding. So what is Cascade funding? It's within one Horizon 2020 project, let's assume 15 million euro, 3 million will be dedicated to sub-course along the way of the project in order to give access to 50K, 100K, whatsoever, to startups and SMEs based on challenges and various small goals. So my question was addressed to GSA EUSPA. Are you willing and planning to extend such market pool activities in the years to come?
I would like to respond.
So I will take it maybe if my colleagues don't. So we actually we didn't experience the Cascade funding as such. However, we had indeed a couple of projects that were doing a similar thing of what you described. And for example, Point IoT, that was one of our projects, stimulated the community of startups and IoT developers, mentoring them, growing them, giving them funding. So I think it's in a way similar, but it's interesting to know that it works in the field of Earth observation, and we are available to consider and to analyze it with you for the future.
Okay, thanks. Fiammetta, before we finish, maybe I can ask you what you see as being the next steps, maybe the first steps where we're working together to try to encourage and enable this community and the businesses in this community to do more. Do you have any perspective on what from the agency will be the first steps to take? You've talked about the publication of the market report and bring that together. I think that will be a great tool. Is there anything else that you could highlight?
Well, first of all, let me start with the human factor. So I think that today you gave us the opportunity to show our faces that for a long time has been the faces of Galileo, but we want them to become also the faces of Copernicus. So really, we have a team of specialists, not specialists in Earth observation, but in the application market. So approach us because we are there to help you to find the anchor customer, to help you to get to the business. So the methodology is the second point we bring, and this I think I explained. And then some tools that the European Commission is giving us to do this job. The first one is Horizon Europe. So we hope to be able soon to launch the first calls of Horizon Europe. And there, of course, we'll do common calls to foster the synergy. So be ready in areas like Green Deal, smart mobility, safety and crisis management, transition to digital age, the Copernicus data economy, and artificial intelligence. So there will be many topics that will require your innovation capability, but also your capacity to bring it to the market, because we don't want to do products that will remain there very beautiful, but we want really to go operational, to see them in the field, to see them becoming a real operational application. And the other tool that the Commission is setting up that I mentioned is Cassini. Cassini will be a large initiative for startups, and there we will have tools like hackathons, acceleration programs, facilitating the access to finance, but also seed funding and the growth fund that will be put in place in cooperation with the different actors in Europe, like the European Investment Bank. And this is a great opportunity because we think that if the startups are needed to explore new business models, and there in Copernicus, maybe it's time to explore new business model, to go a bit farther than the traditional Earth observation kind of business, to include the actors that are not in the club of Earth observation. And this will bring maybe new opportunities also to the specialists, as in the case that we saw before. And we started already, so we have some competitions ongoing that are also acceleration program. The My Galileo, maybe you have My Galileo series, we call it, like we have My Galileo Solution, My Galileo Drones, and we had My Galileo app. In all this competition, we also asked to think about Copernicus, how to combine with Galileo. And we mobilized 600 startups, and we are planning to have an entrepreneurship day, an entrepreneurs day very soon. So we'll announce it, and we will invite you to join to see already some good stories and maybe to matchmaking and to find new ideas. So that's to start, but we are really here to foster the cooperation, and thanks for this opportunity once again.
Thank you. That sounds like well, we're happy to hear that, and yeah, that will be something we can spread around the community. In terms of new business models, that gives me a really nice introduction to the fact that I mentioned earlier, we're just launching our industry survey. So we would very much appreciate people responding to that. We've split it into two parts this year. So it's one survey, but with two different questionnaires. One is for companies which are 5 years old or less. So it's particularly at startups, the way they've come into business and to understand what their business models are. And then for the more mature companies, we're looking to understand a little bit more about how what their issues are, how they're engaging with Copernicus, etc. So to everyone on the call, if you're working for a company, if you've not had a request to fill it in, I should say working for a company that's dealing with Earth observation services in some way, then we're really interested to hear from you, and please be in touch. If you've had an invitation to respond to the survey, please do so, because it provides really valuable information for the institutional stakeholders and is really looked forward to each year. So I'm going to bring the call to a close, close the sort of the formal part of this informal meeting. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. Thanks really to Fiammetta, Edouard, and Justina for their contribution. We welcome the agency into the ecosystem that we're working in, and the extra resources that can bring, and particularly in terms of helping develop this market pull that's come out a few times. Our next EOcafe will be in 2 weeks' time. They're every 2 weeks on the Thursday at the same time, so it's the 28th of January. It's going to be focusing on artificial intelligence and bridging the gap between the AI and Earth observation communities. And then, just so that you're aware, the following EOcafe will be about the raw materials sector and the Earth observation. So hope to see you again at either or both of these EOcafes. Again, a very special thanks to Fiammetta, Edouard, and Justina. Wish everybody a safe and healthy new year. And with a final thought that the only negative of 2021 be your COVID test result. Thank you all, and have a good time. And please, if anyone wants to hang around and just join in the chat, they're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.